History is like a big ball of yarn. Once you start unraveling it, you find yourself tangled in all sorts of threads. I'm bringing you some true historical head-scratchers from the very first story. I'm Michael with List25, and these are 25 historic mysteries scientists are still unraveling. But before we begin, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. Alright, let's go. Gotta go back in time. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Are you still waiting? Come on, let's go. 25. The Amber Room. The Amber Room is a spectacular royal room that went on quite a journey before vanishing off the face of the earth. Things started pleasantly enough, with a stunning design of amber panels and gold leaf being installed at the Catherine Palace under Peter the Great in 1716. The palace is located in the town of Pushkin, close to the Russian city of St. Petersburg, and looks beautiful. However, it didn't stay beautiful for long. In 1941, the Nazis arrived, stripped the Amber Room bare, and took the treasures for themselves. The room wound up being reinstalled at Königsberg Castle, which today is called Kaliningrad. Then Hitler fell and the Red Army moved in on the castle. When they entered the Amber Room, they found nothing. Was it destroyed in an Allied attack? Hidden under the ground or even under the sea? We still don't know. You can still view the Amber Room in its original spot at Catherine Palace, but it's just a reconstruction. 24. The Sea Peoples. What ended the Bronze Age? Although maybe it should be a question of who ended it. The theories are surprisingly vague. For example, there was a group of invaders known collectively as the Sea Peoples who are mentioned in the records of ancient Egypt. The Egyptians, the Hittites of Old Anatolia, and the Mycenaeans of Greece all suffered brutal attacks from this mysterious group. The Sea Peoples were so aggressive that they contributed to the end of the Bronze Age, along with other factors such as extreme weather and disease. So for such a significant group of people, you'd think we'd know more about them. Speculation ranges to this day. They could be Mad Max-style mercenaries or a population who lost their territory. All we can tell from ancient documents is they were a ragtag bunch of raiders. 23. Gobekli Tepe. What's the mystery behind the temple of Gobekli Tepe? It was built in southeast Turkey from approximately 9600 BCE onwards, and we only started exploring it in the 90s, following its discovery in 1963. Gobekli Tepe's stone circles, made up of carved pillars, have drawn comparison with other mysterious sites from the prehistoric era, like Stonehenge. The carvings on the pillars tell a story of humans, animals, and symbols. The only problem is, there shouldn't have been a civilization like this 12,000 years ago. Traditionally, we thought temples happened after agriculture was invented, approximately 10,000 years back. Gobekli Tepe beats that record by a couple of thousand years, so we're guessing that temples came before the farms. 22. The Olmec Heads. When a bunch of giant 20-ton heads are found, you want to know what they mean. Sadly, you don't get an explanation with the Olmec Heads, which were created by the people of the same name between 1500 and 400 BCE. Found across a wide area in what was once called Mesoamerica, there are 17 heads made of basalt, a volcanic rock. What was Mesoamerica? It was a huge landmass covering the southern parts of North America, and it ran through to Central America's Pacific coast. The Olmec heads are all different, with their own distinct identities. The consensus is that they represent powerful figures who ruled over the Olmec civilization, and they're one of the few remnants of that way of life. We don't have much in the way of written material from the time either, making the situation even more mysterious. 21. The Nineveh Library. Libraries don't just contain books. There's an ancient library full of tablets made of clay, which feature information on a massive variety of subjects. In fact, this is the first known example of a library in human history. There are an astonishing 30,000 tablets at the Nineveh Library, Nineveh being an ancient Iraqi city which was formerly Mesopotamia. You won't find any thrillers or romance stories here, though. These tablets are what's left of the Assyrian Empire, who ruled large parts of the Middle East and surrounding areas from 900 to 600 BCE. King Ashurbanipal is believed to have founded the library, where you can find material on astronomy, medicine, religion, and law, among other subjects. The tablets are inscripted with cuneiform, an old logosyllabic writing system. What does that mean? Logosyllabic writing is where symbols represent both words and how they're pronounced. 20. Atlantis of the Sands. The mythical city of Atlantis disappeared beneath the waves, and, if the legends are true, then the ancient city of Ubar in the Arabian Peninsula was lost in the sand. That's why they call this sought-after place the Atlantis of the Sands. Where exactly is the city? It's believed to have been built in the Rub al-Khalil Desert, where it hosted an advanced civilization just like Atlantis. The city, also referred to as Iram of the Pillars, even appears in the Quran. However, we haven't managed to locate any evidence that confirms the Atlantis-style myth. Some think that the site of Shigir in Oman, excavated in the 90s, is the lost city, but it hasn't been confirmed. 19. Moai statues of Easter Island. If there's one thing on this list you'll have already heard of, it's bound to be the Moai statues of Easter Island, or Rapa Nui. These incredible stone carvings, created by the Rapa Nui population between 1100 and 1600 CE, were found by non-indigenous people in the 18th century. The Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen landed on the Pacific island, which later became part of Chile, coming face to face with one of the most awesome and mysterious sights in ancient history. There are over 1,000 of what look like heads on the island, made from volcanic tuff, or rock, some of them unfinished. They look like heads, but actually they're whole figures that have been claimed by the land across the centuries. The big question is, how did these objects, some around 30 feet high and weighing many tons, get built in the first place? We have some theories, such as the giant figures being rolled into place on tree trunks. However, the statues are still a major mystery, just like the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. 18. Puma Punku. You need to travel back in time hundreds of years to explore the mystery of Puma Punku in the Bolivian highlands. This site is thought to have existed since approximately 500 to 600 CE, and the time of the Tiwanaku civilization. Puma Punku appears to be a special place, which was possibly used for religious purposes and other important gatherings. Ultimately, we can't say what it was for. What we can say is that the stone was handled and cut with an enormous level of skill for the time. Puma Punku has made archaeologists rethink what they thought they knew about the Tiwanaku, who lived in the area during the post-prehistoric times. I mean, seriously, check out the surprisingly modern-looking design here. It could almost be some kind of art exhibit from the 20th century. But it isn't. 17. Age of the Sphinx. The Great Sphinx of Giza is an iconic image from ancient Egypt, and has featured on tons of postcards and in many tourist snaps. For such a popular location, it's pretty mysterious, with a key question being, how old is it? Following its first excavation by non-ancient people in 1817, experts figured the Sphinx dated back approximately to 2500 BCE, when the kingdom was ruled over by the pharaoh Khafre. How accurate is this information, though? Well, you've probably noticed the Sphinx isn't exactly looking his best, with his nose missing for starters. That appears to be an act of ancient vandalism. However, there's also weather damage, which has led to a controversial theory. Could the Sphinx have been built earlier, when Egypt had more rainfall? Did all the wet weather damage and erode the Sphinx over time? American geologist Dr. Robert Schoch certainly thinks so, though much of the Egyptology community disagrees. 16. Sacsayhuaman Walls. The Sacsayhuaman fortress in the city of Cusco in Peru is an architectural puzzle. Literally, as some have compared the design to an interlocking structure. It's built from stone, but interestingly, there's no mortar. So, how did the Inca, or whoever constructed the fortress, get the heavy stones to stay up? The Sacsayhuaman walls are put together using some kind of dry stone construction, which involves extreme precision. This is ancient laboring at its finest, and most mysterious. We're fairly confident about the fortress's purpose, which was for defense, and it's also possible people perform ceremonies there. What confuses us is how they constructed such an awesome place to begin with. 15. Cahokia Mounds. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, the US isn't always the first place people think of for ancient ruins. But Cahokia proves otherwise. A series of mounds made from earth and located in Illinois have had experts scratching their heads for decades. The mounds are approximately 1,000 years old, going back to between 950 and 1350 CE, approximately. They're a part of an ancient Native American megacity called Cahokia, which had at least 20,000 people living on it. The Cahokia Mounds State Historical Site celebrates the culture of the Cahokia, both past and present, including the 100 feet tall Monk's Mound, which overlooks around 80 others. This care and attention is important, because written information on the Cahokia during this time doesn't exist. Why? They had no form of writing that we're aware of, so we can only go by their architecture. 14. Tomb of Qin Shi Huang. The image of the terracotta army at the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang is a striking one. Plus, it's world famous. This army was excavated in 1974, having been discovered accidentally by farmers in the area of Lintong District, northwest China. There are thousands of these statues, which were designed to guard Qin Shi Huang as he lay in his tomb. The emperor ruled China from 221 BCE until his death in 210 BCE. He was known as a great unifier, though he left behind a big mystery for us to unravel. What is the mystery? Well, we can see the terracotta army, but not the burial chamber itself. Authorities say it's just too risky to open and potentially damage the contents by exposing them to our modern-day atmosphere. The wishes of Qin Shi Huang are respected today, just as they were a couple of thousand years ago. 13. Rongorongo. One major issue with exploring ancient civilizations is the lack of written material. Much of the time, we don't have anything to go on, but that doesn't mean we don't have clues. Easter Island has its mysterious statues with their heads made of rock. However, this isn't the whole story. Archaeologists have also discovered glyphs containing mysterious language called Rongorongo. Glyphs are basically symbols, and the name Rongorongo translates from the Rapa Nui as to recite, to declaim, to chant out. We've known about the glyphs since the 19th century, and what's really interesting about them is the way they're read. You see, writing usually, depending on your language, goes from left to right and top to bottom. However, with Rongorongo, you start reading the symbols left to right, then you need to physically turn the wooden tablet so you can continue. No one has conclusively deciphered it, so best of luck. 12. Proto-Elamite. What's more mysterious than finding a bunch of clay tablets with an ancient language on them? Not being able to decipher that language. That's what. I'm talking about the Proto-Elamite writing system, which is inscribed on tablets thought to be approximately 5,000 years old. They were excavated at the site of the ancient Iranian city Susa, located in the lower Zagros Mountains to the southwest of the country. Susa was the capital city of the Elamite civilization, who lived in Iran from 3200 to 539 BCE. Archaeologists have found over 1,600 of their tablets since work began in the late 19th century. The Proto-Elamite system was an early form of writing, which was followed by the more standard cuneiform system. So, what does the writing say? Experts think what we're seeing is a lot of ancient admin stuff. Paperwork like documents and financial records, only in clay form. Whatever it is, it can't be properly deciphered, making it the oldest undeciphered writing system on the planet. 11. Colony of Roanoke. This next story was a legendary mystery from American history. An island near North Carolina called Roanoke was colonized by New World settlers who sailed from England in 1587. Now, their leader, a governor named John White, left to go and get more supplies, which wasn't a simple thing to do, due to, the huge distances involved. He wound up being gone for approximately 3 years, leaving behind the 100 or so people under his care. When he returned, he found an eerie scene waiting for him. The colony was gone, and all the men, women, and children had disappeared. According to one theory, they just packed everything up and went off somewhere, possibly to the neighboring island of Hatteras, where the Croatoan Native Americans lived. We think this because the word Croatoan had been carved on a post. Where did the colonists go, and were they okay? The Roanoke mystery was later used in the American Horror Story franchise, though the truth probably wasn't as horrific as that. 10. Lost Legion of Rome. It takes a lot to lose a whole Roman legion, especially one like the 9th Spanish Legion, who were kind of like celebrities when it came to fighting wars. This legion numbered around 5,000, so it's crazy they just vanished off the face of the earth. The ancient Romans conquered territory here, there, and everywhere, meaning the 9th Spanish Legion traveled worldwide. They were last heard about in the 2nd century when they landed in Britain. This was obviously a long time before GPS, so we can't be sure where or when they went off-grid. Some experts figure the so-called Lost Legion were killed in the UK by the aggressive Pict tribe, while others think they met their end in Persia, where the Parthian Empire got them. I guess we'll never find out the answer to this frustrating military riddle. 9. Damascus Steel. Damascus steel was the gold standard for swords centuries ago. It was super tough and cut through very hard material like rock, at least according to the stories. These swords got everywhere. For example, we have records of Damascus steel swords being used in the Crusades between the 11th and 13th centuries. As for when the steel was first made, it came from the Middle East in the 3rd century, or thereabouts. Apparently, a metal called wootz steel was brought over from India and Sri Lanka, where it was worked on in Damascus, now the capital of Syria. Because of its exceptional strength, people want to know how it was created, which is where things get tricky. You see, the tradition was lost in the 18th century, and reproducing the exact process is challenging, despite many attempts over the years. Whatever the Damascus metalworkers did to that steel, they created a legendary weapon. Scientists can only marvel at it and wonder how it was produced. 8. Greek fire. Imagine being in a battle at sea, and the enemy ship is shooting liquid fire at your boat. Yeah, this was the freaky fighting mood of the Byzantine Navy, who were part of the mighty Roman Empire in the East. They called the fiery gloop Greek fire, and they squirted it through pressurized siphons. It was first used in 672, and for many centuries after. While we know it was powerful and effective, we don't know what was in it. This stuff was so flammable it carried on burning even when it hit the water. Could it have been an ancient formula for napalm, a dangerous cocktail of petroleum, sulfur, and other nasty ingredients? Greek fire has kept experts guessing. In fact, you could say it's burned into their consciousness. Oh, I'm sorry. 7. Saqqara bird. Is this object a model of an ancient Egyptian flying machine? The Saqqara bird, named after the place it was found, is a sycamore wood carving some 2,200 years old. It measures approximately 7 inches across and doesn't have any feet. When the mysterious bird-shaped artifact was discovered in a tomb in the late 19th century, people didn't quite know what to make of it. Obviously, it had significance, because it was buried with someone. However, scientists began wondering if this was a plane rather than a simple bird carving. Looking at the design, it resembled an aircraft, and one that was pretty advanced, bearing in mind the technology they had at the time. It seems strange that a model plane would be part of so-called grave goods, so scientists tend to focus on the ceremonial object angle when discussing the bird. 6. Denisovans. The origins of humanity are very mysterious. Just when we think we know everything, history throws us a curveball, hence the discovery of the Denisovans in 2010. They lived on our planet around 300,000 years ago and were based in Russia and East Asia, possibly further afield too. No complete Denisovan skeletons have been found, meaning we've relied on DNA analysis for clues about who they were and what they did. Part of a finger bone was discovered first in a Siberian cave, followed by various parts, including a jawbone which was uncovered in Tibet. The Denisovan story is far from complete, and maybe one day we will be able to reconstruct it. They're both part of our history and separate from it. Denisovan DNA has been found in the population of Melanesia and Southeast Asia, so the legacy continues. 5. Vimanas. Flying machines are thought to be quite a modern thing, but history buffs are speculating they go way further back than we thought. The Vimana, which roughly translates into English as flying chariot, is mentioned in the ancient mythology of India. Their classic text, the Mahabharata, written in Sanskrit 3,000 years ago, has a few flying machines in its story. The question is, did this vehicle exist, or is it all a myth? We don't have any evidence that Vimanas work, and no one has successfully constructed one. There is a Vimana that supposedly travels at the speed of thought, and I don't think that we're quite there yet, engineering-wise. 4. The Shigir idol. How long have people been carving things out of wood? Well, the answer to this mysterious question may lie with the Shigir idol, which was pulled out of the peat bog of the same name in 1894 by Russian gold miners. Peat was the best place for it, as the oxygen-free environment led to less exposure and minimal damage. This item had been hidden for some time and was made during the Holocene period 12,000 years ago. The original sculpture would have been 16 feet high, and the idol displays symbols and shapes like human faces, or humanoid faces. We don't even know if what's being shown there is actually human. Is the idol a spiritual object or a charm? Experts have speculated that it could also be a map. 3. Tully Monster. Here's a mystery that's been baffling fossil experts for 3/4 of a century. They call this fossilized creature the Tully Monster, named after the collector who discovered it, Francis Tully. It's probably a little harsh describing it as a monster because the 300 million-year-old fossil is only 15 centimeters long. However, if you encountered this thing in real life, you'd be pretty scared. The modern-day reconstruction makes it look like something out of Alien. It's so mysterious that scientists can't work out if the Tully Monster is a vertebrate, as in has a backbone, or an invertebrate. It also doesn't match up with other fossils, so it's in a creepy category all its own. 2. Hypogeum of Ħal-Saflieni. What's a hypogeum? Oh, it's a big space underground, and the Hypogeum of Ħal-Saflieni in Malta is a great example of this. The 5,000-year-old burial complex is 36 feet deep and contains approximately 7,000 human remains. These have been laid to rest alongside halls, chambers, and other features carved into limestone. It also has a double mystery. There's the mystery of how it was constructed, but also of how it sounds. Someone speaking in the complex at a frequency of 110 Hz can theoretically affect the way people's minds work. How does that happen? Well, the sound frequency is bounced off the walls and can potentially mess with the brainwave patterns. Listeners might even have their mood altered, and scientists believe this could be why certain areas of the Hypogeum are built the way they are. 1. Byblos Syllabary. We get our modern alphabet from the ancient Phoenician way of arranging letters. Thanks, Phoenicians. However, it turns out the Phoenicians have their own mystery when it comes to language. In the late 20s, French archaeologist Maurice Dunand discovered a previously unknown writing system from the ancient city of Byblos, now Lebanon. The incredible find rocked the world of language experts. Could it possibly be connected to the classic Phoenician alphabet? This syllabary, as it's called, is inscribed on a group of artifacts, which include bronze tablets. What's a syllabary? It's a collection of symbols representing syllables. The Syllabary of Byblos is a language-based puzzle yet to be solved. The excavations revealed a whole new chapter of the human speaking world we didn't know about before. Thankfully, some confusing stories are revealed as frauds, meaning we don't have to worry about them. Actually, I have a question about that subject. In 1983, a story broke out about a sensational collection of diaries written by a controversial figure from the 20th century. These turned out to be fake. But who was the author? Was it A. Michael Jackson, B. Adolf Hitler, C. Richard Nixon, or D. John Wayne Gacy? Let me know your answers in the comments below. Now, this video has shown that history isn't always what it seems. And if you want more astounding archaeological stories, well, then check out our video on ancient artifacts that prove the past was more advanced. Like I said before, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon for another list.